Hello, and welcome to the second AmCham meetup, streaming live on YouTube and LinkedIn. My name is Daniel Pyster. I'm the External Affairs Director at AmCham Belgium, and I'm joined today by Eveline De Ridder. Eveline is a partner at Whyte Corporate Affairs. She is also the Vice President of C Squared, the Association of Communication Professionals in Belgium. She has more than 20 years of experience in communications, and we're here today to talk about public relations and media relations in the time of coronavirus. Eveline?
Hi, thank you, Daniel, and thanks for having me. I have to say that I'm really looking forward to this discussion and to see how other PR professionals are coping with this completely new situation that we're living and all the internal and external communication that we had to organize around this last couple of weeks. I mean, people were going massively on unemployment for certain clients. Others all started teleworking. We had to organize negotiations with blue collars because certain production units had to stay open. Some businesses closed, others had to stay open, and solidarity actions were set up. I mean, I suppose everybody's been really, really busy, but what we see now is that is changing a little bit. And I've got the feeling, and that's how I'm calling it, that we're getting into an information lockdown. That we need to find a way to get out of this. I've got an idea of what we as PR professionals can be doing, but I'm really looking forward to hear how others are doing that also. So yes, let's start this.
Great. We'll come back to that idea of an information lockdown a bit later on. But perhaps to get started and to set the scene, you can tell us how media consumption patterns have changed during the course of this lockdown.
I think media consumption has changed drastically. We all felt it. We started increasing our media consumption immediately. But in fact, I have a scoop for you because we organized during the Easter weekend together with the Survey Institute Dedicated, which is a survey institute well known in Belgium. And we organized a survey to know how Belgians were coping with the situation, and especially looking at their media consumption. And I don't have all the results yet, but for this meetup, I said, okay, let's try to have some questions already. And we prepared a slide on it. And the question that we asked was, okay, since the beginning of the coronavirus, do you feel that you're consuming more news, as much or less than usual than before the confinement started? And the results are speaking for itself. A lot more, a little more. I'm saying 66% of Belgians said that they increased their media consumption during the confinement. So yeah, it's normal. There are only a window to the world. So, but here's a proof that it actually did, and it's not just a feeling.
Thank you for the scoop. So the coronavirus has dominated headlines, I would say, for the past 5 or 6 weeks. It's really kind of blocked out all other news stories. So before the crisis, we were talking about climate change, about the formation of the Belgian government, about Brexit and trade wars. All of this has been put on hold to make way for the coverage of the coronavirus. Do you sense some fatigue setting in with journalists and with the public about this?
Yeah, I also prepared a slide for that. Yeah, just to make it a little bit more visual, because exactly that's what I'm calling the information lockdown. And I'm using the graph that we all know, the flattened curve. That we've all been trying to achieve by staying in the house and doing this lockdown. That's just on the x-axis to give a time frame, but then on the y-axis, it's not the number of people getting sick, but it's all the media outings that we see. And I think that we can all say that since the lockdown started, about 100% of media outings has been corona-related news in one way or another. And there's a time, and I think that time is coming now, that should change. I mean, we're sensing the fatigue, and everybody's feeling that we're in this lockdown also for the media, and there has to be some room for new stories. And I'm convinced that there is room for new stories and other stories coming up. The question is, when do we start? When do we start communicating it again, and when do we think that journalists are ready for it? And there, I feel that we're a bit in a catch-22, because I've been in contact a lot with journalists these last couple of weeks, and yeah, in the beginning they all said there's no room for anything else, which was normal. We only wanted to know everything about Corona and what was happening and the lockdown, but yeah. We sense also that is changing, and I started my talks again with journalists, and they were saying to me, there is no other news. I mean, there is nothing else. We can only talk about Corona. And then I'm talking to my clients and companies, and they're telling me, but media, they don't want to write about something else. And even if we're going to communicate now, then we're afraid that we're not going to get the share of voice that we would like to have with the news. And again, I was like, okay, this is strange, because journalists, they're saying there's nothing else, but companies, they're sitting on stories, but they're holding them back for one reason or another. So in that same survey that we organized this weekend, we also asked the questions to Belgians to know if that they are okay with the media news on Corona, or that they would like to hear something else. And also, that is a very interesting figure. We heard that 44% of the Belgians think that media are spending too much time on COVID-19. I mean, and that gives us an opportunity. I mean, if you look at this, this means that there should be room already now for other stories.
Right. So based on the chart that you shared already and the research that you did this weekend, there's clearly an opportunity to bring non-Corona related stories to the media. But the question for us as PR professionals is, when exactly and how do we do that?
And then when exactly, I don't have crystal ball, and I cannot say the exact date, but my feeling is now is the time. If I see all of this, I see now is the time. And the only thing that we as PR professionals have in hand is that we can fill the news vacuum. We can do it. It's our job. We've always done it. We know how to build stories with added values. And I feel that we're at a crucial stage now for our profession to show what we're worth. And what I'm saying here is, okay, this is not the time to pitch stories to media that you, even in Corona, non-Corona related times, you would even dare to pitch. On the contrary, this is the time to come with really good stories, and we know how to build them. I mean, this is what we do all the time, and I'm just giving again the building blocks that all PR professionals should use as checklists to make sure that their stories bring added value. And I usually say there are 7 that I'm giving here. I usually say that 4 out of 7 should be okay before you actually think of pitching your story. And I mean, the left one is clear. I mean, what you're going to tell has to be new. Huh? Of course, it has to be new, but not only for you as a company, or it has to be unique also. It has to be something new for everybody. You have to be credible as a company to talk about it. And if you're not credible, make sure that you have other expert voices that can add that credibility to what you're telling. Make sure you're relevant. There are still a lot of topics, you were mentioning some of them in the beginning of the meetup, that people want to hear about. I mean, climate change didn't go away. Economy, still there. There are still other diseases that need that are in need for innovation, and pharma. I mean, there's so many things to talk about, and that are still relevant for society. If you're bringing news, try to add some emotion. And emotion, I'm not only talking about empathy. You can use also conflict, or you can use anger in your stories. Make sure that you're using proximity geographically. What you're pitching here in Belgium should have happened in Belgium normally, and not somewhere abroad. But also proximity because you touch people with it. and what you're doing has to have impact. And I mean, those are the seven building blocks. It's kind of a checklist that I always use when I'm building a story and when I'm thinking of pitching a story to journalists. And I think today it's even more important to make sure that we're doing things right and to use this building blocks.
That's great advice. Thank you, Eveline. To bring this back to the current situation and the COVID-19 crisis, there are many companies which are contributing to the crisis response by donating time of their employees, by donating money or by materials. Is this something that you think that they could use or that they can leverage in their media relations?
We've seen it happening already, and it's clear that this is a period where companies can build their reputation or lose their reputation quite rapidly if they're not doing things right. And leveraging good causes or CSR that you're doing as a company, of course you can do it. But what I've seen too much already is that companies are doing CSR for the only reason to leverage in PR. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, we've all know greenwashing, but this is CSR washing also. And so be careful about it. Don't do it just and only for the only reason to leverage in PR, and use the same building blocks for every story that we're using. Is it unique what you're doing? Does it have a massive impact, an impact that nobody else is having? Is it relevant? Of course, but are you credible in doing it because you've always done it, or are you just doing it now? I mean, all of that is so important. So be careful with it, and don't do it only to make sure to leverage it, but do it because you want to do it.
So it always comes back to the building blocks, as you mentioned.
It does. Yeah.
I'm curious for your point of view on how you see public relations changing as a result of the crisis, especially when it comes to connecting and influencing our audiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm certain it's going to change the way that we communicate with media and with journalists. I think we've been in a digital era for quite a while already. With PR, I mean, there was a time 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that we were organizing press conferences all the time, and that we were doing press trips and inviting journalists to come with us. And that was a great opportunity to get to know those journalists and to build relations, because it's a human job also. And we forgot a little bit about that this last couple of years, by doing everything digitally and using Twitter and online media rooms and sending press releases all the time. And I'm not saying everybody is doing it that way, but I think today it proves again that the contact with media and with certain journalists, the human contact, is so important, because I had a feeling now that everybody's looking at each other, but people don't even dare to pick up their phone and just talk to a journalist and ask them, what do you think what we can do? What do you need? How can we help you? And maybe that is going to come back a little bit more in our profession, that the human contact is going to come back a little bit more, or the need for it. And then again, what I said, I mean, it's a crucial period for us as a profession to show what we're capable of. And we can really win in reputation also for our profession in these times, I think.
Yeah. So it's a bit ironic, perhaps, that we're forced to be digital only now by the lockdown, but the result of that will be that we're going to rebuild human contact afterwards, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. At this point, I would like to open the floor to questions from the audience. You can send your questions through the chat window on LinkedIn or YouTube, and we'd be very happy to answer them. But perhaps to get started, I have a question for you, Eveline, about our own experience at AmCham. Because we're a victim of the information lockdown. We had a story that we wanted to pitch to the media, or that we were pitching to the media, the week of March 13th. This is the week that the lockdown really started in Belgium. And we were told point blank by some journalists that there's no room for your story right now. So we've been sitting on this for a little bit over 1 month now. What would you advise us to do with that story?
Bring it out ASAP. I mean, now is the time, and of course, it wasn't a good timing to do it at the beginning of the lockdown. And it's normal that journalists answered, no time for that now. But if you sit on it a little bit longer, it's no news anymore, and it's going to be you can forget about it altogether. So I would go out with it now.
We'll do that. Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience at this point?
Nothing. Maybe I have a question for the audience. Are other companies, are you sitting on your stories for the moment and holding them back? Are you doubting about things? Should we go out or not, or is there no news in your companies?
Don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't be shy.
And also, have you been in contact with journalists talking about this?
Still waiting. Okay.
Suppose it's very clear for everybody, and everybody's going to start communicating again then and get us out of this information lockdown.
I believe that Manuela had a question for us. She told me that she had prepared a question, but maybe there's still some coming. So Tim has a question for us, it seems. Yes, okay. It's a comment, not a question. Indeed, there's a lot of corona news at the moment.
And that's normal. I mean, timing is also always very, very important whenever you check your building blocks, and that's okay. Then there's still other tactics to consider, and timing is one of those very important tactics. And knowing that if you knowing that yesterday evening there was going to be new communication from the government about measures, or are they going to be prolonged or not. Everybody knew that today was going to be a day with only corona news, so it wasn't a good idea to try to pitch other stories today or yesterday. That's clear.
Yeah, we have a few comments and questions coming in now. Dave, I see, has said that just the COVID-19 response is taking up a lot of time. So perhaps companies don't really even have the time to pitch other stories because they're so consumed by the COVID-19 response. And then Else here has mentioned that she sees two tendencies. Companies who would like to prepare for what's coming after the lockdown, and companies that are hesitant to do something. I think yesterday, the government gave us some glimmer of hope that over the course of May, the lockdown will be eased and business can return to somewhat normal. So there are companies certainly preparing for that already. And then Stephanie, also just a comment, not a question.
No, but the comment from Stephanie is interesting, I think. So they at PR Newswire, they're investigating every press release from companies that is not a news check of COVID-19 to get in the news. And does she have any figures about it? How many of the total press releases are non-COVID related? So that I would like to know already.
Yeah,
and then Katrien Jansseune, yeah, she feels hesitation on external com. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, the companies are hesitant for some reason, but if we're going to stay hesitant too long, and I know that we're occupied on internal comms, and the internal comms is taking a lot of our time, it has taken a lot of our time, especially the first weeks. But now I'm certain that the room is coming, and we should think again about external comms, because we're going to lose the momentum. And I mean, media need us also. And now everybody's consuming more news, but people are not going to continue to do that. So we need to get out of this.
Yeah. And we have Katerina as well, it looks like, who's collecting internal expertise that we think is useful to our audience during this time from what a post-corona era may look like. So again, looking internally for resources that they can then share externally with their audiences. I assume either through their own channels or eventually through the media as well.
I'm picking up to Katrine question again, that there is a fear of being perceived as opportunistic. Yeah, of course. And that's why those, but you will not be if you use a PR building blocks, and you will not be because on the contrary, people are asking for it. 44% of Belgians are saying that they want other news. So how can we be opportunistic if we respond to that questions? And also journalists are saying there is nothing else. Help us. So no, I don't think we're going to be opportunistic if we bring good stories.
Yeah, and Dave has responded again saying that kind of we're waiting for more clarity about the new normal, but once we have that clarity, a lot of innovation and news will come out. So still waiting for that moment in time.
Yeah. But if we all keep waiting, we're going to make things harder and more difficult for everybody. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming. We're very happy to respond. So it's a great discussion so far.
Did Stephanie already has some news on the percentage of non-related press releases that she's seeing?
Yeah. Again, we see the comment that communication professionals are being consumed by internal communications. So that could be either employee engagement or reaching out to customers and clients. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, of course. And I don't know if all the teams are still 100% complete. Maybe people are out sick or. So yeah, I know it's very busy times, but
Yeah.
And we're all trying to work and get the things done while we're at home, and maybe also sorting out a lot of other things that you shouldn't be worrying about when you're just at the office. So difficult times.
Yeah, we're all learning on the job, on the fly, how to balance working at home and all these things. So it's new times for all of us. Are there any other questions or comments from the audience?
Yeah, but that's an interesting question from Eveline De Ridder. I suppose that there are a lot of international people, or I hope that there are other international PR professionals at this meetup. Do we know what the PR approaches is in countries as Italy or Spain, where they're already a little bit further? Someone who has a view on that?
Yeah.
Anyway, an interesting question to dig into, and I think I'm going to do that when we finish this meetup.
So more of a comparative question of how are different, how are companies reacting in different countries and different markets? So Dave has asked, how can we bring interesting news still showing that you care about the crisis? So I think there's also a question of empathy and making sure that we're attentive to the current situation.
It's all coming down to the same question. It's the hesitance. Can we talk about something else in this period? And yeah, I'm convinced that we can, and I'm trying to convince all of you. But
lots of reluctance here.
Yeah, still a lot of hesitation.
Yeah.
How many of you has been in contact with journalists trying to? Because I had I had calls and mails from journalists asking me to help us. I mean, do you have anything?
Well, Katrine has agreed with us and agreed with you that there is some fatigue setting in on the current news coverage. So there is going to be an opening soon, if not now already, to pitch stories, other stories.
Thank you, Katrine.
So we have a question, I believe it's from Sophia. Is that the name? So what about news regarding a company itself? Could that not be perceived as opportunistic despite the news value?
No. Again, no, I don't see how it can be if you bring a good story.
So it seems to me that the answer is always, if you come back to the building blocks that you shared earlier, you're on safe ground. That you always need to come back to these fundamentals, and even in this time of crisis, you can pitch another story.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, the building blocks are important, but also the contact with journalists. Try to pitch and exclusively with some journalists. Call someone to ask what they're thinking about it, if it's something that they would consider doing. I mean, talk about it. Just talk about it.
Yeah, Ricardo has asked us, because companies have all gone digital during this lockdown, during this quarantine, after the crisis, will they still use more digital in their PR communications, or will they revert to how it was before? I think you addressed this a bit already during our discussion, but perhaps you can elaborate more on that.
Yeah, but I think I see two tendencies. Of course, digitalization was already there, and it's not going to stop. On the contrary, we'll go further in that. But next to that, I think that we all understand that it's not only digital that's needed, and that the human contact should come back also with the journalists.
Yeah. I can tell you, based on the experience at AmCham Belgium, we organized a press conference 2 weeks ago now, almost, and it was a digital press conference. Normally, in normal times, we would have done it in person, but we adapted, and it went very well, actually. But again, we assume after the crisis we will go back to doing a in-person press conference.
Yeah, but I think we've done it before, organizing exclusive interviews with just by Zoom and by Teams. We already did it, and I think we're going to continue doing it. But don't forget about the human contact either.
Yeah, I think it's also a bit meeting the journalists where they are, being available on multiple channels. So if they prefer to do it online because they can't travel or whatever else, or to meet face-to-face, as you said, to build that human connection.
We're also thinking about it's another client, and I'm not going to mention him, but we were supposed to organize a visit of a production unit with a lot of press that we wanted to invite. Instead of inviting them all together, we're going to make it a press day now, and inviting them one by one. Also, to be able to have social distance for the journalists. If they will be there all together, it's going to be difficult. But we'll organize a complete day with time slots, and we'll be inviting them one by one.
Great. Yeah. So we're all adapting to the circumstances.
Yeah.
It seems like we have another question coming in, maybe. So Ima has asked us, what is the responsibility of PR professionals to filter fake news and misinformation?
It's our big responsibility, and that's what I was talking about. We're in crucial times to show that we're professionals, and that as a sector, PR, that we can really bring added value and work together with the media. And if we let slip fake news and misinformation through now, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. So yeah.
Yeah, so definitely a huge credibility issue there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the question, Ima. Are there any other questions from the audience or comments? Oh, that one I need to scroll up to read. So this is a question from David. He says that at the moment, there's more and more criticism of globalization, but international companies are also part of the solution to fight against COVID-19. Do you have any PR tips specifically for multinational companies? What are the ingredients of a good story so that it does not sound too opportunistic?
I think specifically, it's a difficult question, so it's just to answer like that. But specifically for multinationals, I see in the PR building blocks that proximity is the most important one. Make sure that you're talking or that you're pitching stories of what the multinational is doing here in Belgium, how they're maybe they have a production unit, maybe they only have a commercial department, but if they have something here in Belgium, make sure that you're pitching stories about what's happening here and not what's happening somewhere else, specifically with the increasing criticism on globalization that you're talking about. I mean, act local, think local also, and show that as a multinational.
That's actually something that we love to do at AmCham Belgium. We love to tell the stories of multinational companies that are really invested here in Belgium. We have an entire website dedicated to telling stories of multinational companies in Belgium. I encourage you to visit yestobelgium.be, and you can read the stories of what US, but not only US companies are doing here locally in Belgium. We have a comment from Dave. I think external PR experts can assist companies with bringing out new, exciting news, but companies lack the resources, be proactive. So a bit of a promotion for your agency, perhaps, Eveline, that you can be selling your services to some companies that need the help right now.
Yeah, I mean that was not the purpose of my talk today, of course. But yeah, if you're in lack of resources, there are plenty of good agencies around in Belgium. So don't hesitate, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you for the comment, Dave. Are there any final questions or comments from the audience? Again, this has been a fantastic discussion, and we're happy to continue it for a little bit more. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions or comments from the audience, Eveline, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time today to speak with us and to speak with our audience about public relations in the time of Corona. I think you shared some really fantastic advice about the information lockdown, about the fundamental building blocks of a good story, and a bit about what the future of PR holds for us. So going back to that human touch.
Yes.
Well, we have another question. So before we go back, we have a question from Bo. You mentioned that journalists are seeking news. Do we know whether it is specifically popular or quality media that is seeking stories?
Both. I heard it from the financial newspapers. I heard it from our Belga press agency. I've heard it from lifestyle magazines also. But yeah, no, both.
So everybody is looking for new stories, non-Corona related. So again, that sounds like a fantastic opportunity for companies that are brave enough to start communicating externally again, are willing to take that risk or hesitant. Yeah.
No, I was just going to add, so step up as a PR professional and show what we're worth and what we can do, and convince the companies, because yes, I know that I understand the hesitance, and I understand that it needs courage and also time, but it's up to us now.
Great. If there are no further last-minute questions from the audience or comments, again, Eveline, I'd like to thank you for your time and for your support during this. Whyte Corporate Affairs is really one of the most engaged member companies of AmCham Belgium, and we really appreciate all that you do for us. For the audience, thank you for tuning in. Stay home, wash your hands, be safe, and we do have a slide here at the end that we'll put up on the screen with some organizations that are contributing to the crisis response. If you would like to support those organizations or to help out, you can follow the links on this final slide that should be appearing soon. But there's 4 or 5 organizations in Belgium that are really collecting funds or putting out services to support the medical staff and anybody else who is affected by COVID-19. So we encourage you to contribute if you can. With that, I would like to conclude this meetup. Eveline, again, thank you once again. And we at AmCham Belgium will be back with another meetup, hopefully next week at the same time. Thank you and take care.
Bye.